בשמיים תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ורק השמיים תפילת האדם. God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. We are here to honor the memory of Lionel Eltis. So I have some questions for you. Is anyone here 100 years old? Nobody? Anybody close? Nobody? Getting there? He was over 100 years old. I really thought that he was always going to be here. In fact, as I mentioned even yesterday, ever since he died, for a variety of things, I'm going to give her a microphone. There's like no better testimony to honor the whole life of Lionel than having a great-grandchild singing. Yay, that's me, she said, yay. Yay. Anyway, since he died for a variety of things, we would talk about what we would do to honor his death, whether it was parts of the service or when to do the funeral part or what to serve for the reception. I would say, let's just call him and ask. We can't just call him, but we kind of can. In Jewish tradition, we're taught that we don't know what happens after someone dies. So what we do now in our life matters. How we treat each other, the impact we make on other people, on the world, that's what matters. But I believe, and I like to think, that the soul survives. I like to think that talking to Lionel is always going to be what I'd like to call a local call. Some of you are not old enough to know what a local call is. And I thought about that. What does it mean to be old enough to know what a local call is? When Lionel was born in 1917, only 8% of all homes had a telephone. 8%. Now, like, every person has 8 phones, it feels like. The life expectancy in 1917 was 47 years old. Some other details about 1917, the beginning of what Lionel experienced, and I've already confirmed none of you have experienced, none of us have experienced. Crossword puzzles, canned beer, iced tea had not been invented yet. Can you imagine? Not even in the South, no iced tea. I can't imagine. There was no Mother's Day or Father's Day. Now we can't imagine a time without any of those things, and it's going to be difficult for Mother's Day and Father's Day without Lionel. You may or may not have noticed Mother's Day, as you know, comes in May, and Father's Day comes in June, and both Shirley and Lionel died right between the two of them. We'll always remember them, and I believe we'll always remember them with a smile. I know right now, they're smiling, they're back together again. Life is good again because of that, knowing that they're together. You see, we agree. There's a lesson from King Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes that says, the day of death is better than the day of one's birth. The commentary explains, when a person is born, it's not known what he or she will be like when grown, and what his or her deeds will be, whether righteous or wicked, good or evil. When someone dies, however, if they depart with a good name and leave the world in peace, people should rejoice. I'm going to be honest with you, I miss him very much. But given the fact that he had a wonderful 100 years, it feels like this memorial service is more about honoring his memory and rejoicing, and less about mourning and sorrow. Speaking about rejoicing, has anyone here ever seen Lionel drink any alcohol? Anybody? What? Well, so I want to tell you some stories about me and Lionel. Some of you know this about me. Typically, I don't drink. I feel like it's not that I won't drink, it's just that I feel like I'm on call all the time. So one time, Lionel invited me to one of his birthday parties. It could have been 90 or more or less, I don't remember. We were at a lovely restaurant, and he wanted to start the festivities with everybody having a drink. And he walked around the room saying, well, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? What are you drinking? And so I declined, and he insisted, kind of. But I playfully tried to avoid having to drink by saying what I always say, you know, if it's not chocolate, I just don't want it. And so he said, well, let's see what we could do about that. And he brought me a chocolatini, which I'd never heard of before. And as we like to say, the rest is history. When I think of history, I think of Lionel. He lived through it. He remembered it all. And he'd talk about it. I was, as my congregation already knows, I was not very good at history in school. I was better at other subjects. But when Lionel would talk about life and the history that I was trying so hard to remember, at least as long as I needed to for the test, when he talked about it, it came to life for me. I get it. I understood about life and history thanks to his stories. It was personal. It was meaningful. I know that each of you have stories to tell about Lionel. Please keep telling them. It never bothered him to repeat a story. But to be honest, I truly loved hearing him get excited again and again and again. Each time he would talk about things, whether they were his experiences. Anybody know what his first day in the military was like? What kind of tent he slept in? Anybody? Yeah. How many times did we hear it? He also talked a lot about his family. I'm going to share a few memories about Lionel, about me. I have many, but I'd like to share a few. One of my favorite memories of Lionel is one that includes Shirley. She had learned to read the Torah portion for Yom Kippur. I loved hearing the way she would read it. The last time she read it for us, which by the way is on YouTube still, her practice session, I remember him more than I remember her. She was already a little bit not so strong. Getting up and down the stairs was tricky, and we were in the Lefkowitz Hall where the stairs are even trickier than normal. And he was just so loving, so caring, so watching over her. He worried about her being able to get up and down the stairs. He was worried about her standing too long. He hovered. He also beamed when she read. I loved how much he loved her and how much he loved his whole family. So I have a tricky question here. How many of you are related to Lionel? Yeah, everywhere. I love that about B'nai Zion. We have families here that have been here for generations. If you look out at the wall, the confirmation wall, anybody here on the confirmation wall? Anybody here related to anybody on the confirmation wall? Anybody friends with someone on the confirmation wall? The hands keep going up. If you've never seen it, then on the way to Lefkowitz Hall, where we're going to get a chance to visit with the family and eat something, I want you to take a look at it. It's the whole hallway going down. It's the picture of confirmation class through the years. Confirmation class happens at about 9th or 10th grade. The first picture that they show a date of on the wall says 1918, but there's a picture before that. So we guess that it's probably 1917, which, as you know, was the year Lionel was born. Last year, in 2017, the class of 2017 realized that they were the 100th year on the wall. And so they asked Lionel to be the one to lead the blessing for the wine. That's on YouTube too. You can see this. It's just an amazing thing to see him. And by the way, just another 100 years, every year for 100 years we've been giving the Jewish Publication Society Bible. I got one for my confirmation. I took it with me. When I got married, I carried it with me. We were going to stop giving Bibles last year because kids kind of don't need it. They have everything they need on their phone, they Google it or whatever they do. And we thought it's just something extra that they probably won't schlep with them to college. But we found out that the Jewish Publication Society's 100th year was last year, that they started making that Bible in the year 1917. And so it puts into perspective many things that have happened over the past 100 years. Lionel was honored in so many ways. Locally, he was active and well-respected in the Rotary Club. Anyone here know him from Rotary? Nice batch of hands go up. I want to tell you a story. It's not about Rotary, although I can tell you that he kept trying to get me to join the Rotary, which was very wonderful. But I had a connection with him from afar. I don't know exactly. This kind of surprised me. When I was in high school, I was very active in the Jewish youth group that was the Central New York Federation of Temple Youth. The advisor for more than the 4 years that I was there was a woman named Norma. And after I graduated high school, I spent a year in Israel, and I came back and I went to school up in Albany to college, university. And Norma was the principal at the religious school there, and she hired me to be the music teacher. And I really appreciated and respected her. Some of my favorite advice during those years came from her. Well, so then fast forward many, many years, and here I am in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I come to find out that Norma and Lionel and Shirley were really good friends. How? Because it turns out that after I left, Norma got involved in the paper industry, and there they were. She respected this guy who was the head of the paper industry there. They were good friends. Everywhere I went, there were connections with Lionel. So many people at B'nai Zion think, including me, I used to think this, that Lionel, because he was kind of the elder statesman of B'nai Zion, was a past president of B'nai Zion. And I'm sorry to tell you that he was never president of B'nai Zion, although we always treated him as if he had been. I would give him the kind of honors during the High Holy Days that we usually reserve for past presidents. He did try to let me know. He would take every opportunity when I would say, hey, as past president, would you sit on the bema for this or something, sit at the pulpit? He would say, you know, I was never president of B'nai Zion, but I want to tell you that Shirley was the very first woman president in all of the state of Texas at her congregation. And he would brag about her every time I was trying to honor him. So this was a congregation when they were living in Tyler, Texas. And I want to share with you that the rabbi who had been their rabbi at the time sent me a message asking me to send his condolences. He said, I just saw the notice about Lionel, Bobby, it's just his wife, and I remember them fondly from their years in Tyler, which were the late 70s. He and Shirley were a powerful and loving unit. As active as he was in the Tyler Temple, Lionel was content and oh so proud to have Shirley lead the congregation as president. In 1977, Shirley was the first woman president of a Reformed congregation in Texas. Lionel was most gracious, with a wicked sense of humor, and a tremendous love for his family and friends. So I have to tell you, Rabbi Gene Levy was also a guy who I knew from the late 70s when I was song leader again. And if you know Rabbi Gene Levy, then the fact that he said anything about someone else having a wicked sense of humor is pretty impressive. Because I don't know that I had ever heard a sentence come out of his mouth that wasn't a pun or a play on words. And then you do this one-upmanship with him, and he always would win those things. But I want you to notice that there wasn't anything funny. There were no puns in what he said when he was remembering and honoring Lionel. There's a saying in the Talmud that the deeper the sorrow, the less tongue it hath. It's not that we are sad that Lionel died. We just sometimes won't have words each time we realize what we've lost. Fortunately, our tradition provides us with words we can say to help us honor the memory of Lionel Eltis. You should have a handout, and in your handout on the back cover is Psalm 23. I'm going to say some of it in Hebrew first, and then I would invite you to please read it with me in English. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yishovev. Please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. His cup runneth over. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing, from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity, and youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. And the child asked, "Tell me of life." And the sage answered, "Life, my child, is a mystery. We do not ask to be born, nor do we even understand the meaning of birth, of creation. We grow and we experience life's pleasures and pains. We love, and slowly, oh so slowly, we come to realize that we have become, that we are. At that moment, we humble ourselves before the mystery of life and quietly say, 'Though I knew not, I have been granted the most precious gift of all, the gift of life.' And the child asked, 'Tell me of death.' And the sage answered, 'Death, my child, is a mystery. It is the inevitable return of the gift of life, the gift which came free to us. We live as the trustee of that mysterious being, of that unexplainable becoming. Yes, you and I are but trustees of life. We nurture it, we delight in it, we give of it to others. And at the appointed time, we sadly, yet with pride, return it from whence it came. The beauty, my child, is that we are, what we have become, remains long after the gift has been returned. It remains as a precious keepsake with our loved ones who live on." יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. There are stars up above, so far away, we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with the people we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. I'm going to invite some family members up to tell us what kind of a guiding light Lionel has been to them, the things that we remember. And I think Sandra comes up first. And with your permission, making this a little bit not so cold.
I want to thank all of you for joining us today to honor Lionel. He would be so thrilled to see so many familiar faces, and especially thrilled to know that you were here to honor him. I can proudly tell you that I am and will always be Daddy's little girl. And he was my knight in shining armor that could do no wrong. And I was his favorite little girl. These last 4 years since we lost my mother, we spoke on the phone every day late in the afternoon. He was always waiting for me to call and would answer the phone with, "How's my little girl?" And I'd go, "Hey, Daddy, how are you today?" And we'd chat about a few things. We would discuss what he had been doing, but more important to him was to find out what I had been doing. He was always interested in where I was going, who I was going with, and then try to get as many details as possible. Sort of like when I was a teenager, he would carefully scrutinize my friends, especially boyfriends. Over the years, it has always been my tradition to write a poem or a tribute to Daddy on his milestone birthdays. I believe the first one was probably his 70th birthday. And lo and behold, we continued until his 100th birthday. On his 90th, I wrote a tribute to him with the help of my brother Brian, my sister-in-law Cindy, my husband Mel, and all of the grandchildren. Everybody scribbled down a little reason, or several reasons, why they loved him, or what he had done to give them love. And I composed 90 reasons, so it was quite a lengthy essay that I wrote. And I distinctly remember him saying after I read that to him that he wanted me to read that one at his funeral. Well, on his 100th birthday, I decided to toast him with a few reasons why he had given me love. I suppose I could have come up with 100 reasons, but in the interest of time and respect for others who wanted to toast him that evening, I boiled it down to just a few reasons. So, Daddy, I know you hear me now as I remind you how you gave me love. You taught me to be the best person I could be. When I made mistakes, you were always there to cheer me on to the right path. You gave me courage to be strong and independent. You taught me the importance of honesty and integrity. You taught me also the importance of devotion to friends and family. Your zest for life taught me to not be afraid to try new things. It also taught me to love a good party and enjoy a good drink. For those and many more reasons, you have given me love and devotion to make me the luckiest daughter in the world. And now, Daddy, as we lay you to rest, I will continue to give you my love. And thank you for giving us the chance to celebrate you one final time.
What a journey he had. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mel Weiss, and I was always Lionel's favorite son-in-law. My father-in-law was by far the nicest man I have ever known. Maybe that explains why I was his favorite son-in-law, or maybe it's because I was his only son-in-law. But there is one word like no other to me which describes Lionel, and that word is mensch. For those of you who don't know, mensch is a Yiddish or Jewish term that loosely translates into being a good guy. However, Lionel was an example of what I would call a true mensch. That is, when it is used as the ultimate compliment. For he was way more than just a good guy. It means the person is a person of the highest integrity. They're exceptionally responsible. They have an innate character which always knows of right and wrong. Their word is golden, their heart is virtuous, and most of all, they are the sort of person other people imitate and wish to emulate. Lionel was all of that and more. Probably the one lesson, most important lesson, he and my mother-in-law taught us was demonstrated by their love. They had an enduring, lifelong love affair. They were practically inseparable, and their lives revolved around one another. In the final months of her life, when she was in a nursing home and no longer able to recognize or respond, he was at the home every morning for her breakfast and did not leave except once in a while to attend Rotary, but he did not leave each day until she was fed dinner. That was for months. I don't think it is possible that I will ever meet another man who more faithfully lived his values. At the beginning of our relationship, Lionel sat me down and wanted to tell me that as my father-in-law, he would have times that he would want to give me advice. He stated that he wanted me to listen respectfully anytime he wanted to give me advice. And after he was done, he said I could consider his advice and do whatever I thought was best. He followed that policy of giving advice and not continuing to bring the subject up his whole life. Many years later, he had an opportunity to sell his business, and he asked me for my advice. I advised him that since he was in his 80s and the offer was really good, that he should sell his business. He did not. A couple of years went by, and again he came to me. He had another offer on his business, and it wasn't as good of an offer. And again, I advised him that at his age he should sell, get rid of any debt he has at the bank, and again, he did not listen. When a year or so later he asked me for my advice again, I told him my advice had not changed and that he was going to do whatever he wanted anyway. He kept the business until he was in his late 90s, and then he assisted one of his employees to take over the business. It took me a long time, but by then I learned a lesson that for him, that business was like a baby, and he didn't want to give it up. Money was not his priority. It also served as a source of interest for him, and I now believe that that allowed him to live actively all those years, and I think he was right. My advice was bad, his was good. So when you're doing a eulogy, you're always supposed to have a joke during a eulogy. So a man is at a restaurant, and the waiter asks if he would like something to drink. He asks the waiter if they pour a good-sized drink, and he shows him about 2.5 inches or so between his thumb and his first finger. The waiter says, "Yes, sir. What would you like?" The man's replies, "I'll have a Dewar's on the rocks." The waiter comes back with the drink, and no matter how good the pour is, the man takes a look at the drink, looks up at the waiter, gives him a hard look, and he says, "Son, that's not a good pour. I spill more than that. The waiter apologizes, takes the drink back to the bar, and everybody at the table laughs. And every time, at every restaurant almost for 50 years, the waiter always brings the drink back with much bigger pour for Lionel. Lionel had a great sense of humor, and he loved a good party. Many of you may not know who Adlai Stevenson was, but Adlai Stevenson, I'm going to quote, he said, "It is not the years in your life, but the life in your years that counts." For every one of Lionel's 100+ years, he filled it with life. He had a wonderful life. He would often tell me that he had no regrets, and what a wonderful life he had. So today, I will celebrate his life. I will not mourn it, for the best lesson he has taught me is that you must learn from the past, plan for the future, but live for today.
So I'm Ashley Grosfeld, and Daniel Weiss is my first cousin, and we represent all of the grandchildren of Papa's. I'm going to speak off the cuff, so forgive me. But my husband and I were speaking earlier in the week about when someone passes away, you're really not left with much besides your reputation and the legacy that you leave behind. And Papa obviously had an amazing reputation. He was a mensch in all aspects of his life, and from that standpoint, he definitely left a wonderful reputation. But I think more importantly, a legacy that he left behind was his grandchildren, his 10 great-grandchildren and counting, and the love that he showed for us was unlike any other. To him, family was everything, and he never missed an opportunity to tell us that he was proud of us, he loved us, and the love that he gave us was pure, and it was very joyful. I think he took joy in it, and we always took joy in spending time with him. We're so thankful. We're so thankful that he was able to be with us to celebrate our son Jacob's bar mitzvah in January, and he came up on the bima, and our rabbi gave him an amazing special blessing, and it was really such a special day. One thing that hasn't been mentioned about Papa was his amazing attitude and joyful, happy attitude, and I personally attribute that to his longevity. Even when Nani died, I remember talking to him on the phone, and he said, "I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna miss her, but I'm gonna be okay." And he was okay. He missed her, and he loved her, and he treasured the years that they had together, which thank God were many and many. But he was okay. He lived with a positive attitude, and he enjoyed life, and he decided that he was gonna be happy. And I think that all of us can take a clue that we can all make the decision that we're gonna love and live and be happy, and may we all take that clue from him and live the way that he lived, with a smile on our face and a fantastic attitude.
We've been visiting Shreveport since we were small children. It's a place that we all love, and it was the home of our grandparents. Visits from a young age always included the latest surprise that Papa brought back from the market or trade show. Pens, toys, gadgets, little gifts, tons every time we visited Shreveport. Many memories spending holidays and vacations here with our cousins and family. Papa always ensured we were smiling. He was always making sure we were having fun. He instilled the importance of family at a very young age. We were drinking from a saucer. 20 years ago today, I was a relatively recent college graduate working here in Shreveport, working for my grandfather at the paper shack. I learned an incredible number of life lessons that summer. First, that you don't wear a blue dress shirt in the dead of summer in Shreveport. And you probably want to put a second dress shirt in the car just in case you sweat through the first one. But what I really learned was hard work from an 80-year-old man, not hard work from, you know, a 40, 50-year-old mentor, hard work from an 80-year-old man. I learned how you treat your customers, and more importantly, I learned how you treat your employees. I was also lucky enough to have Sunday supper with my grandparents regularly those 6 months. I was drinking from a saucer. 11 years ago this summer, I had my first... 11 years ago this summer, I had my first child, and 2 years later, my second. They were incredibly fortunate to really know their great-grandfather. And I was lucky enough to receive parenting advice directly from him. They heard his stories about the Depression, the war, some stories numerous times, but it seemed like every time there was a new story. And then they heard his stories about the great years that followed. I knew I was lucky, but may never understand how lucky I was drinking from a saucer. Last summer, we gathered as a family to celebrate his 100th birthday. There were 4 generations of our family in a room together, and that poem he read in this room that day will resonate forever. All of us lucky to know my grandfather are drinking from a saucer because our cups have overflowed.
Well, thank you very much for coming. I'm Lionel Eltis. I'm the baby of the family. And a lot of wonderful things have been said about my father. But what I want to talk about is another kind of gratitude. After my mother died, both my sister and I said to my father, why don't you move to Atlanta, or why don't you come live in Dallas? And there's a wonderful retirement community, much like the Oaks, near my house. And I said, you know, you can move into the Legacy. He was still driving then. I said, you can drive. Look, I'm really blessed. I have 4 wonderful children and 8 grandchildren. Ashley and Mark have 3 great kids, Jacob, Jonathan, and Sarah. Blake is always a source of entertainment. Lindsay and Josh have Jonah, Caleb, Liam, and Hannah. That's Hannah running around right there. Hi, Hannah. And Lindsay's got one on the way, so that's number 5. Drew and Miriam have Mia, and she's the one that was singing. And the three of my kids, we all live about a mile from each other. And we're together all the time. It's so indicative of the family that on the way over here, everybody seemed to ride with somebody else's family, that we blend very well together. And so on my nightly talks, because as Sandra, I talk to him every night, he would ask me, you know, what we did, and I would share a story about, you know, what is happening, and he would say, I wish I could be there. And I would always say, well, you know, Daddy, you can. You can move to Dallas and be part of this. And he would say, well, who would collect the rent? And I would say, Abby and Wally will collect the rent. Anyway, he was dedicated to live in Shreveport and make his life here. And I realized that he had a family in Shreveport. And you're that family in Shreveport. That he had Talisa and Buddy Savor. Talisa was an absolute dedicated friend. I mean, the patience of Job to take care of my mother the way she did and to take care of my father. They were really a cute couple together because they would bicker with each other, but they did great. And Lisa has taken such great care of my father. And then he had Ruth Smith, Lisa would get off in the middle of the afternoon, and Ruth would come late in the afternoon and fix him dinner. And for years, he would make himself a drink, and then they would watch Jeopardy together and answer the questions. And then he had Abby and Wiley Robinson. Abby has been the most wonderful daughter, and Wiley's been the most wonderful son. Sunday afternoon, Cindy and I were here on Thursday, Friday, went home Saturday, came back Sunday. I got to the hospital Sunday afternoon, and Abby's sitting with him. He's in a coma, and she's holding his hand. Been wonderful. We've been friends and known Jeff Crane for years, and Jeff provided 24/7 help for my father for the last 18 months. These ladies became his family too. Hazel, Takita, Jean, Janet, Ellen, and Connie. Y'all became his family. That you were with him. You listened to his stories. It was wonderful. This temple has become his family. He rarely missed a Friday night. And I would always talk to him after temple, and he would tell me that who he saw. And so the temple is family. But I cannot leave out Rotary Club, because Rotary Club has definitely been his family. For him to miss a Rotary, it was a big deal. And every Tuesday night, I would hear who he sat with. I'd hear if he won the jackpot or not. I'd hear if he liked the program. He said he would tell me if he fell asleep. But Rotary was his family. So I want to say thank you. You were his family. You loved him like family. You completed his life and made these last years really good. So Sandra, Mel, Cindy, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and myself want to say thank you for being his family.
This is what he said he wanted read. You already heard about it. It's from Lionel. I've never made a fortune, and it's probably too late now, but I don't worry about that much. I'm happy anyhow. And as I go along life's way, I'm reaping better than I sowed. I'm drinking from my saucer, 'cause my cup has overflowed. I don't have a lot of riches, and sometimes the going's tough, but I've got loved ones around me, and that makes me rich enough. I thank God for his blessings and the mercies he's bestowed. I'm drinking from my saucer. You got to help me with this. Say, 'cause my cup has overflowed. I remember times when things went wrong. My faith wore somewhat thin, but all at once the dark clouds broke and the sun peeped through again. So God, help me not to gripe about the tough rows that I've hoed. I'm drinking from my saucer 'cause my cup has overflowed. If God gives me strength and courage when the way grows steep and rough, I'll not ask for other blessings. I'm already blessed enough. And may I never be too busy to help others bear their loads. Then I'll keep drinking from my saucer 'cause my cup has overflowed. We take a moment to remember. If it's comfortable for you to stand, I ask that you please rise. This is the prayer that I like to say ushers his soul to his next adventure. I'm going to say it first in Hebrew, and then I will read a translation for you. El malei rachamim shochen bamromim, hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim uteorim, kazoher harakia mazhirim et nishmat Aryeh ben Binyamin, shalach lo olamo. Bal harachamim, יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרו בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse, in perfect peace and sadness, the way of all things. May Lionel's memory be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of his love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all his worthy and righteous deeds, that his memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. God is our source and our destination, our beginning and our end. May Lionel's death awaken us to this truth, that the bond of love we shared and share not be severed in sorrow. May he rest in peace, and together we say, may the love and eternal connection of our souls give us strength as we turn to recite the words, hallowed by time, sanctifying the name of God. We honor Lionel's memory with the words of Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. You should have received a handout. If you have it, it's in the middle page of your handout, the Kaddish. It should look like this. If not, and you want to join us, you'll find it also on page 154 in the prayer book in front of you. We read with the mourners, Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yeheh shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמך תקודשה בריחו, לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, V'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all the world, to which we say, Amen. The psalmist has written, weeping may tarry into the night, but joy comes in the morning. El malei rachamim, O God full of compassion, please send your comfort to those who grieve. Help them to dispel the sadness that accompanies the pain of loss and to find joy in the precious memories of Lionel. May your love inspire them to focus on the love that they had for Lionel and that Lionel had for them. Help them to face the future with courage, to treasure Lionel's wonderful legacy. Sustain us in our faith, O God, even in this time, as you sustained our people in times of trouble and sorrow throughout the generations. Blessed are you, God, who provides comfort to the brokenhearted. May the Holy One of Blessing, from whom all things come, and to whom all things return, give us light and peace on this day of grief and mourning, and may our service for memory of Lionel bring comfort and strength. I'm going to ask that the family go through this door and meet us in the Lefkowitz Hall so that you can have a moment to visit with them. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom. עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו, אמרו, Amen. Thank you so much for coming. Please keep telling stories of Lionel. You're welcome to join us for some refreshments and to visit with the family in the Lefkowitz Hall. You can go this way down the hall or that way and down the hall. Thank you.